Hey, it's State of State. We got your Nittany Lion update. It's a football discussion with Tom and Justin, so kick back and press play.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to State of State, a Penn State football show presented by FanDuel. Make every moment more. I'm Tom Hannafin. We're awaiting Penn State legend Deon Butler is experiencing some technical difficulties right now. Justin King is out. Penn State falling by a score of 25-24 on the road against Iowa, and this was a game where Penn State was the underdog by a spread of 3.5, according to our friends at FanDuel. So for those of you that were interested in that, Penn State covered the spread. Outside of that, this was exactly what Terry Smith promised in terms of effort and motivated play. And that is the silver lining that I am choosing to take from this game at this point. There's still a lot that needs to be corrected over time with this Penn State football team, but I am legitimately very proud of the way that this team fought and played throughout this game. There was no sign of quit whatsoever from the players, and this was a very hard-fought, very physical game on both sides of the ball. So the effort, at least you saw that, and I appreciated that from Terry Smith. From the very beginning, Terry Smith said, we're going to empty the clip, and it is very hard to argue the point that Penn State left or did not leave everything on the field in this game. So I want to get your comments and your thoughts on this as we await Deon Butler here dealing with some technical difficulties. Apologies. We're very excited to get him on the show, so hopefully he'll be able to join us here momentarily. But want to dive into some of the reaction from this game in general. I think you have to start with the offense of Penn State. This was one of the more confusing game plans I think I've seen under Andy Kotelnicki in his time at Penn State. I think that has to be called into question. It was talked about a lot during the broadcast that the two quarterback system, the dual threat quarterback usage was something that Andy Kotelnicki did a lot of in his time at Kansas, and that this must have been a circumstance where he felt like he could empty the clip and dive deep into his playbook. The unfortunate part is the capability of the two primary quarterbacks, Ethan Grunkemeyer and Jackson Smolik. It just wasn't there. Ethan Grunkemeyer looked like a true freshman. He had aggression. He was decisive at times. He certainly did everything to elongate plays, but he looked like a true freshman. And that's exactly what he is right now. For all of the comparisons that had been said about his arm to Drew Allers and his legs to Bo Perbula, he's certainly mobile. He certainly does have some arm talent, but his decision-making process is extremely immature right now. He was one read deer in headlights for most of the night, and that is not entirely on him. That is having a handful of days to get ready for your very first start, a road game at Iowa. Very, very difficult circumstance. So I did not like the way that Andy Kotelnicki called this game. You saw a variety of Penn State media pundits and Letterman, the likes of Jahan Dotson and Al Robinson, talking about the endless barrage of gimmicks and gadgets within this offense. And it just doesn't work at this level. I thought we had learned that lesson about halfway through last year. Tyler Warren erased a lot of those things. But Andy Kotelnicki, the way that he called this game, it did not necessarily set up Penn State for success, in my opinion. I want to get to some of your comments here, taking a look at this game. Melinda, how ready is the four-string quarterback to be one play away from being in the game? Melinda, that's an outstanding point because Drew Aller went out, and we expected a significant drop-off. So that should tell you how talented Drew Aller is. But when you start running both your 2 and 3 quarterbacks and you're risking their health through the entire game, you're entertaining a situation, exactly what you said there, Melinda, where Jack Lambert might have been asked to come into the game. And you saw how Ethan Grunkemeyer looked in this game. Grunkemeyer finished 15 of 28, 93 yards passing, 2 interceptions. One of those was essentially a punt, so no one's losing sleep over that. But one of those interceptions was just a bad decision, gets tipped, and it's a positive play for Iowa that nearly went for a touchdown. And then you saw Ethan Grunkemeyer running the ball 6 times, took some sacks in this game, took 1 sack, a bunch of tackles for loss in this game. So his rushing total is nothing to write home about, but 6 overall carries in this game. So yeah, the decision-making process to decide to run both of your second and third string quarterbacks consistently, I did not like that. And then Jackson Smolik, I would have to speculate that Penn State doesn't have any faith in him to throw the football. He had 4 rushing attempts, statistically speaking, for 3 yards. And I don't think there was any need for that. There did not appear to be a need for a Jackson Smolik package a la Bo Perbula, and it did not look like it made much of a difference in this game. Maddie getting in here. Thank God for Katron. 100%. 28 carries, 145 yards. 2 touchdowns, was averaging 5.2 yards per carry, a long of 30 in this game. Nick Singleton only had 6 carries for 15 yards. And that was kind of what Penn State fans had been calling for most of this season. And from what we've learned now in the autopsy of James Franklin's firing, was something that James Franklin was very loyal to his players, and he had been committed for a long time for Katron Allen and Nick Singleton to split carries virtually evenly. And even when it became very obvious that Katron Allen was far more productive than Nick Singleton, James Franklin stuck to that. And now that James Franklin is out, obviously changes in decision-making. You saw a much more concerted effort, very lopsided in favor of Katron Allen. So, that Katron Allen single-handedly kept Penn State's offense alive, and credit to the offensive line in this game. They had their struggles, certainly, throughout this game. But in the end, 173 yards rushing, roughly 4 yards per carry, and the 2 rushing touchdowns we talked about with Katron. So the offensive line looked better. You had Anthony Donko in at right guard. You had TJ Shanahan Jr. in at left guard because Vega Ioane was ruled out before the game. So one can only imagine what this game would have looked like if Penn State had its full complement of offensive linemen. Vega Ioane, especially that road grader at left guard. Maddie went on to say here, can't wait for the new staff. So tired of the Andy Kotelnicki offense. Maddie, I share your frustration. At this point, I would be shocked if Andy Kotelnicki was back at Penn State in 2026. I don't know what his contractual situation is off the top of my head, but this offense just does not work at the Big Ten level. This will work in the Big 12, not in the Big Ten. Sorry. Broden here saying they played hard. They absolutely did. Melinda, I listened to the game and I was impressed with the effort. I was also impressed with it. Broden, a lot of wasted plays, swapping the quarterbacks, though. I hope that was the last we see of it. Here's the challenge is now you go into a bye week. And you can sit with all of the thoughts and all of the emotions of this past week for the next 2 weeks before you go on the road to play the best team in college football, the Ohio State Buckeyes. So being able to have narrowly pulled out a victory here against Iowa would have propelled you into a week of healing mentally and emotionally in a positive fashion, and now you don't have that. So this was a hard-fought game, though. I give a lot of credit to the players. The way that Pat Kraft talked about it earlier on this week, Terry Smith talked about it as well, is trying to support the players as best you can. So tremendous shout-out to all the fans that made the trip out to Iowa City to try and support the team. Just really difficult circumstance. Maddie went on to say, played better than I thought. Can't expect much from true freshman first game, especially with Andy Kotelnicki at offensive coordinator. I'll say this, it was a far cry from the Taquan Roberson game years ago.
State of State is a proud supporter of Blue White Outfitters. Blue White Outfitters was created as a retail shop meant to highlight the confidence, competitiveness, and fearlessness of the elite athletes found throughout the history of Penn State University. Check out their Lockdown U and Lawn Boys merchandise today. All sales from Blue White Outfitters directly benefit Penn State student athletes. Also, official State of State merchandise is available now. Support the show and grab State of State t-shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. Visit www.bluewhiteoutfitters.com today.
State of State, a Penn State football show, is presented by Delete Me. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. Data brokers make a profit off your data. Your data is a commodity. Anyone on the web can buy your private details. This can lead to identity theft, phishing attempts, and harassment. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. What do data brokers do? Your name, contact info, social security number, home address, even information about your family members could all be compiled by data brokers and sold online. I understand what it means to have an active and online presence, so privacy is extremely important to me. Have you ever been a victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. Now at a special discount for our listeners and viewers. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/pro and use the promo code PRO at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/pro and enter code PRO at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/pro, code PRO. Delete Me. Your personal data is yours again. Chris, not bad for the interim head coach and the backup quarterback now. If only the defense could stop the run better, we might get a decent bowl game this season and end on a high note. I owe an apology to Iowa fans. I did not give the Iowa offensive line its flowers, and I was curious to see in this game if their performance against Indiana, where ultimately Iowa's rushing attack netted less than 100 yards rushing in that game, if Penn State would be able to do something similar, because Penn State's overall ability, I thought, would probably be the second best defensive unit that Iowa would face this season. And I was wrong. So Iowa fans, I'm happy to eat crow on that one. That is a hell of an offensive line. Kamari Bolton should have gotten the ball 10 times more than he did. 17 carries for 99 yards. Long of 21, 5.8 yards per carry. Mark Gronowski, leading rusher, 130 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns on the ground, average 14.4 yards per carry. Penn State just did not have an answer for the QB run game. And it wasn't, most of the time, it wasn't even designed QB run. Yes, there were RPOs, but there were certainly options where he just took off. And Penn State, lack of depth at linebacker, having to use Akee Wheatley to come down and try and be more of a significant presence in the run defensive game. Penn State doesn't have an answer for a mobile quarterback. I think that's been proven now for 4 consecutive weeks against Dante Moore, Nico Iamaleava. And not to say that Preston Stone gashed Penn State, but you've got 3 out of 4 teams there who have mobile quarterbacks who can hurt you. And that, I think, those secrets out for quite a while here on Penn State. Defensively, that is. Melinda, I have a personal objection to a streaming service trying to force people to buy their service for a year just to watch one game. I'll say this, that production quality for Peacock was absolutely terrible. There's no audio for the entire introduction to the game. Bad camera work, like just everything about it was just not good. I was very surprised overall. Shane's first game in a tough environment. He did well. The circumstances, just dislike the calls. It made it tougher. James, don't know if you're talking about Terry Smith or Ethan Grunkemeyer there. I'd imagine you're talking about Ethan Grunkemeyer, but he was very much in a circumstance where he could only make one read. That was very clear. He could make one read and then he would take off and run. And like all young quarterbacks, held onto the ball way too long. And when he got into a situation where he had to extend a play or try to extend a play, he would throw the ball into traffic, into a dangerous situation, or he'd throw it out of bounds and he would risk a grounding penalty. It's just immaturity, unfortunately. Melinda actually thought 2 quarterbacks was a decent way to take pressure off of Grunk. It did, and it didn't. It just didn't allow Grunkemeyer to get into any rhythm, unfortunately, in this game. Chris, really don't understand why Andy Kotelnicki was gimmicky going back and forth between 2 inexperienced quarterbacks, and the defense is having trouble stopping the run at this point. Chris, to your question, as I mentioned before, this is what Andy Kotelnicki did at Kansas. He had Jalen Daniels and Jason Beam, and those were 2 more talented quarterbacks than what Penn State has right now. And he was able to do a lot with the surrounding cast there. But it was also the Big 12. So 2 years ago, he was able to get away with this stuff in an inferior league. Most of what he does, it's a lot of movement and window dressing, and you just pretty much have to stay focused on one particular thing. It's basically the cup game you see when you go to a baseball stadium and there's 3 cups and it's where's the ball. You just have to focus. It's a smart, disciplined defense like you played tonight against Iowa. Sniffs that stuff out pretty quickly. The secret's been out for about a year now within the Big Ten about what he's like. Chris went on to say, at this point, Katron Allen has proven to me he's running back 1 this season. No offense to Singleton, but Allen is getting the job done. Feed K-Train. Yeah, I was feeling this way about midway through last year. Melinda, once again, Baroden, that's a fair point, as is the point of risking both of them. Yep, I wouldn't have risked both your quarterbacks when you're down that bad. Maddie, it's like Andy Kotelnicki was trying everything Franklin wouldn't let him run earlier in the year. Pretty much, yeah. And you could understand a circumstance. Again, I don't know the inner workings of what went on this week with the coaching staff, but you can understand a circumstance where in the past, James Franklin has said the offensive coordinator is the head coach of the offense and defensive coordinator is head coach of the defense. So with Terry Smith taking over this week, I wouldn't expect Tony Rojas. I wouldn't expect Terry Smith to barge into the respective offices of Andy Kotelnicki and Jim Knowles and tear up a game plan or something like that. I was going to say, hey, we're going to put faith in our individual guys. You guys handle the offense, you guys handle the defense, and we'll make corrections. So this next week, 2 weeks, is where hopefully you see the corrections. Let's see. Any idea or guess how badly Smolik is hurt? I have not seen anything at this point in time, but we'll see if there's any information that comes out post game. I imagine Terry Smith will be speaking momentarily or is speaking right now. Maddie, Freudian slip. You're talking about missing Tony Rojas. Yep, you absolutely missed Tony Rojas. The lack of depth at linebacker is alarming. Shout out to Zakee Wheatley. The interception on the first drive of the game against Iowa was spectacular and set up Penn State for success. Zakee Wheatley led the team in total tackles with 10, an interception, and a quarterback hurry. What they're doing with Zakee Wheatley is a logical attempt to supplement the lack of ability at the linebacker position, but then it's also taking away from what Penn State's able to do in the secondary in terms of coverage. Luckily, in this game, Mark Gronowski was 10 of 16 for 68 yards passing and the interception that we talked about to Zakee Wheatley. So the passing threat was not significant here against Iowa, so it wouldn't break your back. In 2 weeks, the passing threat is going to be significant with Ohio State. In 3 weeks, the passing threat is going to be significant with Indiana. So there's a lot that Penn State is going to have to figure out, and Jim Knowles especially. Chris here. Tom, do you think aside from a new head coach, then we're going to need a new quarterback in the transfer portal or something? No disrespect to either quarterback we have. Just curious if we need a more mobile one. I was feeling this way in the offseason when you started to hear the questions of, well, who's the backup quarterback? Because we were so fortunate for the last few years with Bo Prabula that it was just obvious who the backup quarterback was, and you felt confident in him. You saw Bo get in the game like that. There were legitimate concerns going into this season and then projecting ahead to 26 and 27. Hey, we're hearing about this being an open competition for quarterback number 2 into 2026. So it doesn't instill a lot of confidence. I'm of the mind, yeah, there might be a transfer portal quarterback starting for Penn State in 2026. I don't think Ethan Grunkemeyer is bad. It's just like this is the first time we've gotten to see him start, and it was on the road. This is his very first start. So like, it's really hard to be super critical of a true freshman. There's a lot of growing pains that he has to endure at this point, and Penn State will have to endure along with him. So I wouldn't be shocked if Penn State went and got somebody in the transfer portal, because clearly they didn't trust Jackson Smolik to throw the ball. This was an offensive coordinator in Andy Kotelnicki that was calling a game scared of his quarterbacks and trying to mitigate more errors or cut down on the margin of error. So yeah, Chris, I would not be shocked if Penn State hopped in the transfer portal for a wide receiver. Maddie, these losses don't hurt that bad now. Head coach is gone. I already figured the season was over, waiting on good change to come, hopefully for a bright future. Maddie, I am with you too. Yeah, you can't swap quarterback in and out. The great teams don't do that. Fair. Andy Kolenicki offense is not Big Ten football. Agreed. Rob Burwell, member for 4 months. Thank you so much. For those of you that are watching and will be listening, if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel for just 99 cents a month. You can get all past and upcoming episodes of State of State, ad-free, commercial-free. Just follow the link in the description of this podcast, whether that's on YouTube or audio only. We got a lot of new members recently. Rob, thank you very much, and we appreciate your donation to the channel. That's very nice of you. What other questions do we have in here? Yeah, just to kind of touch on some other stuff. The defense in this game for Penn State, outstanding offensive line play by Iowa. Absolutely outstanding. So it's very difficult for me to get too upset about this. You saw Yvonne Kamaju get involved in the game. Zariah Fisher came out due to injury at points. You saw a lot of different bodies getting involved at defensive line and as well at linebacker, just trying to shake things up, trying to get some new involvement. I was very surprised at the way that Iowa played this game for the most part. I was very surprised at some of the decisions that they made throughout this game. The decision to kick the field goal from 66 yards out based on that trajectory and the way that Justin Lustig had been setting up the defensive line to literally jump the center to try and block kicks the entire season and this entire game. I was like, this doesn't set up well. For Elliott Washington to return for a touchdown, absolutely sensational, just incredible. And you could tell based on the first handful of drives of this game that Penn State was going to need the defense or special teams to score points because the offense was just not proving the ability to chain together sustainable drives. And I thought the best thing that Penn State was able to do on the field in this, for the most part, controlled time of possession. But in the end, Penn State 36 minutes, 12 seconds time of possession to 23 minutes, 48 seconds for Iowa. So, I mean, it's great that they were able to do that and grind out yards and grind out plays, but still, this was an offense that was 6 of 13 on third down. And there were a lot of different elements in this game where there were penalties or no penalty calls or just the way the ball bounced or some odd decisions by Iowa throughout this game from a game management standpoint where you just kind of scratched your head. And had it not been for some of those elements, this could have been out of hand in Iowa's favor. I was scratching my head in the first half. I do not understand why Iowa insisted on throwing the ball. I understand going for balance, but at the end of the first half, Kamari Moulton was averaging 8 yards per carry against Penn State. That was an incredible offensive effort by Iowa's running game. At least that offensive line did a stellar job. Penn State's deficiencies along the defensive line are obvious at this point, and it's really difficult to sit back and rely on past evaluations of overall talent at this point and say Penn State is fielding a better team than the teams they are playing, because we legitimately just don't know the answer to that anymore. And I think we kind of have our answer. So the next 3 weeks are going to be tough. They're going to be really tough. Maddie, thank you for becoming a member of our YouTube channel. We appreciate that so much. We try and, give you guys what you want, and that there are a lot of ads that YouTube puts up. We have to include ads on the show. It's how we make money. It's how we keep the show going. But, we want to offer this to people that, care about this. So we really appreciate it, Maddie. Thank you very much. This one is from Azarice Fire 86. Defense is incapable of getting off the field on third downs. Yep. Struggled with that. Really struggled with that. In this game, Iowa was held to 4 of 10 on third down, but they just had some instances when they did convert, it was backbreaking for Penn State. Maddie saying Iowa stopped running the ball. That was nuts. Yeah, I was texting a dear friend of mine who was at the game and is an Iowa fan. And I said to him, I was like, if you guys just ran the ball the rest of the game, just under center, hand it off, you'll win. Their offensive line was throwing around Penn State's defensive line for much of this game. Melinda, did Aller go to the game? No, from what I understand, he did not. He's been recovering. He had surgery on his left ankle, broke his ankle. I think I saw a report online that he is expected to be healthy in time for Penn State's pro day for his preparation for the NFL draft. So we'll see if that is the truth. This, if you guys have any other thoughts or questions, I'm all ears on this one, but I will take away from this game that Penn State played hard and did exactly as Terry Smith promised, that there was a toughness, there was a grittiness about Penn State. They did not quit. They did not give up in this game. At no point did I see body language of a team that was uninspired. The issues on the offensive side of the ball, you ran up against a really damn good defense, top 10 defense in the country in multiple categories, smart, disciplined, and physical. Penn State's offensive line issues continue. I'm not even that mad at the pass catchers. I mean, I'm sure Devontae Ross is ticked off because last year he scored 3 touchdowns on this Iowa team and he was playing for Troy. So I'm sure there's a lot of frustration. I'm sure there's a lot of frustration for Nick Singleton, his workload being reduced after, James Franklin gets fired. Katron Allen plays a really hard-fought game, but part of the luxury of having those two guys was they elongated each other's careers. So it's a lot. So defensively, there's so many things to pick at, but at the same time, I'm very proud of the effort that was put forward in this game. If there's any other questions or comments here, please get in our YouTube comment section and get at us on social media at State of State Pod on X or Instagram. I want to sincerely apologize. We were expecting to have Deon Butler here as a part of this show. I understand he's having significant technical difficulties, so we were unable to get him on here, but hopefully can get him on at some time in the future. So the final score from Iowa City, Penn State drops its 4th consecutive game, this one in the wake of the firing of Penn State head football coach James Franklin. Final score, Iowa 25, Penn State 24. Thank you for tuning in here to State of State, a Penn State football show presented by FanDuel.
Thank you all so much for joining us. This episode and our entire library of shows is available now on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate us, and turn on notifications. Follow us on social media at State of State Pod. Comment on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't done so already, you can become a member of our YouTube channel. For just 99 cents a month, you can get all upcoming episodes of State of State, plus our entire members-only playlist, ad-free, commercial-free. Hit the join button on our homepage or follow the link in the description of this podcast. State of State is presented by FanDuel.